So there are experts all over the internet giving all kinds of advice that's just not true or was true at one time and isn't accurate today that could absolutely cost you millions of dollars over the lifetime of the ownership of your home. So we're here today to expose some of those things and make sure you avoid those mistakes around common real estate advice. So let's jump right into it. One of the most common mistakes we see and hear for real estate advice is wait to list your house until the spring. Now, there is some truth based in this particular advice, and where it's commonly referenced is that the fact that 32.5% of the volume throughout the year does happen in the second quarter, and then another 32.5% happens in the third quarter. So what they're saying is that spring and summer are often some of the best times to sell. Well, in Middle Tennessee, we've discovered that that is not necessarily the case. There is activity and volume throughout the market and throughout all seasons. Now, there's better times for you personally and maybe emotionally or for all the other things that may be going on in your life, and that's perfectly fine. And yet, waiting till spring is not always the best thing. Let's talk about the truth. The truth behind this is actually some of the buyers in the winter or off seasons are more serious. They negotiate less, they look at fewer houses, and ultimately move much more quickly into properties because they're making a move in the winter and they want to go ahead and get wherever they're going. So I want you to know that if you need to go ahead and sell, there's good times and an opportunity and people in the market almost always. Now, we tend to deal in the luxury market over $1 million here in Middle Tennessee. And that's another thing, is that luxury is not seasonally based. Now, certainly the house may look better in the spring and we want to have some time and have some pictures to market that when the grass is green and the trees are full and all of those things. And that in and of itself could give us an advantage over the competition if you happen to be selling in the winter months or the darker months. So you can work through that by having some strategy. But also knowing that the luxury buyers are not necessarily seasonal. They're not necessarily motivated by that. They're going to do what's convenient for them in their lives, and in this price category, they're going to go ahead and find the right things. And when it's the right thing, they're going to go ahead and make that move. So that's another thing that people don't consider when they're talking about seasonality, is the specific price category, and does your potential future buyer have impact, or are they seasonal? The final tip around this common advice that really is just wrong is also knowing, setting yourself up for success and being in the right position. So knowing that you can actually have less competition and have more buyers coming in and have fewer, people out there that are competing with you. That's another thing that happens in the other 6 months of the season outside of that 65% of the market. There's plenty of time and strategy. If you're one of those people that we run into often that say, hey, I really don't want a bunch of people in and out of my house. It's inconvenient. I live here and I just have stuff here that I don't want a bunch of people seeing. Well, again, that's another reason not to be on the market in the spring, because there's going to be a bunch of people that want to see it really quickly, that have, lots of different habits and their own motivations based on that. And so it can be a real imposition for you while you're living in that property to have that. So you'll have less competition, you'll sell more quickly, and you'll end up having fewer showings, which disrupts your life even more. Okay, the next piece of advice that we hear that is so dangerous and is that you need to renovate everything in your house so the next buyer just has nothing to do. Now, this is something we unfortunately see happen a lot in our market, and I have seen one client spend over $500,000 making improvements and renovations to their property that didn't create a ton of value. It definitely didn't create $500,000 worth of value. So you definitely want to engage in the market and talk about, hey, what should I focus on? And the truth is, you don't want to do an enormous amount of renovations. There are buyers that are out there that want to make their own renovations, and they're not necessarily going to be looking through the lens of living there that you have, especially if you've lived in a home for more than 10 years. It's definitely your home and you're connected to it. And so your view may not be necessarily on trend, and it may definitely not be the same view that your future buyer, they may be older, they may be younger, they may have different needs and vision for the property than you do. So often the truth that we share and reveal here around one of the biggest mistakes in real estate advice is you want to actually focus on anything that's, broken. You want to make sure you fix anything and bring it forward. You also want to make sure that you work on any of the kitchens and bathrooms. Those are places that people can be really disruptive, and it's very difficult for people to do those renovations when they're in the house. They can also be some of the most expensive, but with the right planning and the right strategy, strategy, you can update them and they can be in good order and be just fine for that next buyer, whatever they may do. But we see people all the time say, hey, I want to change out these countertops. What do you think? Well, that could be a $20,000 to $50,000 change. And it may be something that as soon as you do it, one of the first showings you see is like, oh, we love the house, but we hate the new countertop. We really just didn't think it matched the era of this home. And you're like, oh my gosh, I just wasted all that money on the countertop. So it's something you really want to focus in a hyper local market about the trends and the value, because you don't always get dollar for dollar return when you're out there. And you can also focus on any structural or mechanical issues. You want it to deliver in a structural way. Now, structural can be a scary conversation, but it actually can be a really relatively easy fix and can be fixed right and prepared for that new buyer's home inspector to say it was done properly. The other thing that you can do when you may be needing to do a bunch of renovations is you may consider doing a bunch of staging. Now, this can be actual physical on-site staging. It can be physical on-site staging with the stuff that you have, or it can even be digital staging where you can go through and as opposed to redoing that whole kitchen, you can actually do it digitally and show it and market it as a digitally staged photograph of the potential of what that kitchen could look like. It may have a great footprint. It just needs a refresh, and that'll get people in there. So focus on those things and those truths versus some of that bad advice. Number 3, price your house high and just wait for the buyer to come and negotiate down. Now, this one we run into all the time. And even in this market right now, the market we're in right now is kind of a balanced and neutralized market, which is a really strong market. We have a lot of activity, but actually we're seeing people struggle to get offers on their houses because when they're out of their market or over their price point, the buyers just aren't responding to that. They know that, hey, like this is just way overpriced. That's not the right thing. And so they'll let it sit. And so you'll see days on market ultimately go up. And so this is something that you just can say, oh, well, we're just waiting for the right one. It only takes one. And that's true. But again, not considering this whole carrying cost and the time in your market and in your price category, you may have a 9-month inventory. And inventory means the number of houses that are on the market and the velocity at which they're selling. We can pinpoint within a pretty strategic amount of time how much inventory is going to come to market in addition to how quickly they're selling. And we could tell you pretty specifically when it's going to sell. So if you need to sell faster than 9 months and not have 9 months of carrying costs, you're moving out of market right away in the next 30 or 60 days and you're going to have the house left behind because it's going to be easier to show. That may be, but it's also really strategic if you want to sell in a timeline so it doesn't languish on the market and also run into all the things of having to cut the grass and get it ready for winter and blow the leaves and winterize the pool and all of those things that happen through seasonality of home ownership. You can actually be strategic, price it right, and be intentional about getting it priced just right so it'll actually sell and be one of the first properties to go ahead and contract in the timeline that you ultimately want. Okay, the next piece of advice that we run into is that you should cover up some of the things that you know are wrong with the house and just let it be buyer beware. Now, we categorically disagree with this. We would never, ever, ever advise a client to do this. And yet not a year goes by where we don't hear about a seller trying to cover up something or hide some significant repair that needs to be out there. Now, the reality is, we've talked about this earlier, when you're getting the house ready for market, often you can get things repaired and get them in good working order that is perfectly acceptable, and then allow someone else to make those improvements going forward. But as opposed to covering things up, the truth that you should focus on behind the scenes is actually work with data, not rumors, right? Don't worry about rumors that you may have heard in a chat room or through a friend or through a group. You want to actually look at the data and be strategic and intentional about some of the data that's out there. Get some of your professional inspections early so you don't run into surprises when you're in process and you have a buyer involved and you have some of their advisory committee and all of their advisors and their professionals. You go ahead and get some of those quotes from professionals in advance. You'll know what you're dealing with and you'll be able to show that as a anticipated talking point in the transaction. And you could go through and focus on the long-term value of the house, right? Certainly it's going to take some improvements and everyone's going to make changes. I've heard from from the National Mortgage Broker Association that they anticipate over the first 18 months, people spending about 20% of their monthly income on the house, whether that's furniture or upgrades or improvement, televisions, or whatever it may be, just making it theirs. And they know that's going to be part of the process. So you can continue to focus on your long-term value that you have. But most importantly, you want to make sure that you document everything out there. Document anything that you've had. If you do a pre-inspection, you may want to go ahead and do some of those repairs because you're the only decision maker. It's still your house, and you can go through that and actually make some of those decisions, document the repairs, and show that. If you fix everything on the home inspection, on the pre-home inspection, now you have an asset. Hey, we had someone pre-inspect. Now that we're under contract, we'll show it to you, and we'll show you all the repairs that we did and all the details and all the vendors that came through and affirmed that this house is in good order. And that's ultimately the buyer's main fear. So you want to make sure not to cover things up. You want to disclose what you can, and you want to continue to do the next right thing. So if we're meeting for the first time, hello, my name is Alex, and I'm your friend in real estate in Nashville. We love sharing great tips and strategies just like this that we're dealing with in the market every single week. And videos like this come up from our activity in the market here in Middle Tennessee. The way we can continue to bring great stuff like this to you is you helping us out by sharing this with someone that you know that we need to connect with that's going to have their next move or sale here in Middle Tennessee, so we can connect with them and build a relationship and help them reach their goals. And if you happen to be the one that's moving to Middle Tennessee or selling here in Middle Tennessee, you could connect with us right here and actually schedule your own personal time with us to have 30 minutes to get connected right away. And so we can start our relationship, whether you need us 6 days or 6 months from now. We get those calls just about every day on both ends of the spectrum. We're happy to connect now so we can start to set the wheels in motion. It is a longer sales cycle than we're accustomed to in this modern world, yet we're happy to get connected because it'll actually turn into something quite quick long term. But we're thrilled you're with us. If you found value today, please hit the subscribe button, drop us a comment, and if you need a connection outside of Middle Tennessee, we have an amazing realtor network that we spend a ton of time investing in, and we can help you get introduced to our friends in the market for you and your next market that'll help take great care of you just like we would here locally in Middle Tennessee. We're thankful that you're here. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. Now let's wrap things up with one of our last tips and our close of this week's video. Okay, our last video that we share is that you should always buy and never rent. Now this one's slightly controversial, and of course it's controversial coming from me as a residential real estate agent who makes my living and provides for my family, helping people sell and buy real estate here in Middle Tennessee. Now, the reason we bring this up is that it can be very difficult, especially if you haven't moved in a while. If it's been more than 7, 8, 9, 10 years and you're not accustomed to it, it can be a real challenge to be moving across markets, and you can make a decision that could absolutely cost you hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in long-term value on your property. And so we often will recommend, if you're moving across country or moving into a new market, it may be a good decision to go ahead and move there and rent. Initially, one of the easiest things here, and the truth behind this, is that it'll help you because you don't have to worry about maintenance. You know it's a short-term solution, short-term being probably 12 months or maybe 2 years, but you get a feel for that market. And you often, we discover with clients that we advise this, they're so grateful that they chose when they were moving into a new market to go ahead and rent initially because it helped them really discover the market as opposed to trying to discover it from across different markets. Now, we've had some people that are truly professional movers. We had one family move to Nashville recently that had moved 12 times in the previous 14 years. They have it down, y'all. Like, they know what they're doing. And so we were just a cog in their wheel. Like, we just jumped in, got an order, did what they needed to do, and they just kept on rolling. So all that to say to you, you need to be specific and intentional about the market that you're moving to. And you want to go through and make sure that you're intentional, that you pick your exact place. And just waiting for a little bit, yeah, you got to move twice, but you can get there and you could get moved and have enough small stuff and keep some of it in storage. And ultimately, it can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in the process. Well, that's it, y'all. What did you think of this week's video? Which tip was your favorite? If you got value, please do subscribe from this and drop us a comment. Let us know. We'd love to engage. We're actually the ones back there engaging and answering you. And again, we'd love an opportunity to connect with you if your next move is here to Middle Tennessee or out of Middle Tennessee. And if your move is not here, we can certainly connect you to our realtor network across the country and help you do it. We just did it this week. We made an introduction to one of our friends in London who's adding to their portfolio, and they actually wanted a house just like Mary Poppins. And listen, they spent almost a week there, saw 20 different properties. So wherever your next move may be, we'd love to be a part of it or help make an introduction that'll help make it a better process. Thanks for joining us. Until we connect again, my name is Alex, and I'm your friend in real estate in Nashville. We'll see you soon.